Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? Okay, I cannot do the fan flipping, song singing intro for this video today. I can't. So let's just get into the video. There's no 20-minute intro about what I did last night. If you guys want to hear what I did last night, go over to my vlog and watch it tonight. It'll be up later. I was sent by numerous people yesterday and the day before, I think it was mostly yesterday, this interview that James Charles did with this YouTuber named Sophia Franklin. So Sophia Franklin is a YouTuber that does a lot of really problematic interviews with problematic people, and it has a history of being problematic herself. She has on this channel that she does these interviews, I think 71,000 subscribers. So she did this interview with James Charles, and the interview is called, hold on, let me look at it, James Charles, Accountability, Painted, and Call Me Back. And before I watched the video, I started reading the comments, and the comments are not good on this video at all. So she's obviously not deleting comments, which is, I guess, one positive that came from this video. But a lot of people are really criticizing, I mean, the top comments are criticizing her for giving James Charles a platform and giving him a voice to speak and things like that. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch the part of the video where he addresses the allegations, which is actually at the very beginning of the video. I mean, she goes right into it and addresses it. The thing is that she picks and chooses what she wants to talk about and what she wants to ask him in this interview. This interview is so problematic from her and from him that I've seen that there's been a couple videos out there made about it, but I'm just like, it's unbelievable to me, this PR campaign that James Charles is on to resurrect his name. And the saddest fact is that it's working, okay? And she actually, in the video, when this part came up, I was just like, I could not believe it. She actually gives an excuse to James Charles for why people continue to this day to call him a predator. And she makes excuses for him, the interviewer. Okay, now so when you go into an interview, you're supposed to A, have done your research, B, ask the hard-hitting questions, and C, be unbiased in an interview, okay? You're not supposed to be in the interview talking about, oh my god, I can't wait to see your makeup room. I mean, it's so cringe, and it comes right out of the gate that way. She's like, I can't wait to see your makeup room. I'm like, this is gonna be a real hard-hitting interview. Yeah, do people take you seriously? I mean, at all? Because this is ridiculous. And for me, it's very much about the same way that the Cosmopolitan article talked. When they started talking about his house and the cookies in the jar like the Kardashians and all that kind of stuff and the price of the house. It was, yet again, somebody doing an interview with James Charles that was very enamored with the world of James Charles. Now, here's the thing that's interesting to me when I was watching this. She's read the Cosmopolitan article. She reads to him a quote from the Cosmopolitan article. Out of the whole Cosmopolitan article, which was so piss poorly written, okay, she picks one comment to read, all right? Now, let's look at source material over the last few years since the incidents of the allegations of predatorial behavior have come out about James Charles, okay? There's the initial allegations that came out from the victims. There's that. Okay? There's people that have gone in and done research, you know, and talked to the victims. There's James Charles holding myself accountable video, which he's taken down. There's his open conversation video, which is still up, but he reiterates a lot of the facts, but then goes in and blames it on a drama channel, which he indirectly blames drama channels in this interview as well. There's the Logan Paul interview that he's done. There's the Cosmopolitan article, not to mention the behavior that he's shown in the last 4 years, okay? With throwing up age check and things, holding up showing the picture on his Instagram of the joke about Toddy Westbrook coming out and talking about this years ago with the birthday cake that said, Andrew did it at my birthday party. I mean, I think it was just a month ago that Ethan Klein, he reshared this on Instagram that James Charles was making fun of having to ask for age checks on his DMs. He actually came out in the Holding Myself Accountable video, which we're going to get to in a second because I watched it yet again to just fact check things, which it's interesting watching it after watching this interview, but I'm going to explain that to you in a second. And he says in there that he realizes that his For You page and search function on his social media are not dating apps, and that will not happen again, okay? He also says in this interview and his Holding Myself Accountable video and his Open Conversation video that he doesn't believe in just apologizing, that somebody should take your face value for an apology or saying that you've changed, that you have to show that you've changed over time, okay? Now, there's one thing that I do know about myself that Sophia does not have, okay? And that is that over the last 2 years, I have shown proof and evidence on this channel, proof and evidence, okay? From his own Instagram, from the things that he has said in the Cosmopolitan article. And today I'm going to prove to you again things that he is saying today, okay, in February of 2024, that has shown and proved that this man, this 25-year-old man, has not changed since the incidents occurred. In fact, he doesn't really think that he did anything wrong other than not fact-checking the age. He's still victim-blaming, okay? He's still blaming drama channels and saying that we took a narrative and we ran with it, when all of our source material came from James Charles himself. In fact, all of my source material to this day comes from James Charles himself. If you go and you watch my videos where I talk about James Charles and the serious allegations that he was talking to, sexually inappropriately talking to a 14 and a 16-year-old, okay, that he even came out and said, with an easy check, he could have found out their ages, okay, with an easy check of their socials. But that easy check, which before he said he only talked to them for a few minutes, in this interview, I don't think he remembers his lies, because he's come out before and said, I only talked to them for a couple minutes. In this interview, he says he talked to them for at least an hour, okay, each, and then blocked them. In other conversations, he said he talked to him a few different times. In this one, he said he talked to him for an hour and he blocked him, okay? So his story and his narrative constantly changes. I will tell you this, myself and most of the drama videos that I've watched from other creators out there have kept their stories consistent, and they get their information, their source information, from James Charles himself. So when he goes into this whole narrative of people want to believe this person, people want to believe that person, okay, and she feeds into that narrative and gives him an excuse and says that, you know, people need to go to the source person themselves and read from the source material. That's all we've ever done, darling, okay? We've gone to James Charles. He is our source for any information that we talk about, all right? So when people come to you and they have an issue on your interview that you are platforming a predator, all right? Which it's not just one comment, it's not just two comments, it's literally flooded, okay, with comments about how dare you platform a predator, okay? There's a few people in there that are defending James and things. Of course, you always get that when you make a James video, okay? But the majority of it is people coming for Sophia saying, why are you platforming a predator? Let me just make this very, very clear. If somebody wants to sit down with James Charles and ask him the hard-hitting questions, and I don't have a problem sitting on camera doing that, and I've asked you before, James, on camera, and here I'll put it out there again. If you want to sit down with me and I will do a well-researched, hard-hitting interview that's not going to fawn over your fucking makeup room, I will do that interview if you want to sit down with me, okay? But no, you pick somebody that you know adores you, and they're gonna swoop over the hard-hitting questions, and they're gonna only ask you the easy questions, okay? That you already have written responses to that you can refer to, because that's been your narrative for the last 4 years, okay? Such as, I don't believe in stated apologies. You have to show proof over time that you've changed. But the problem is you haven't shown that you've changed, okay? And literally everything that you say in this interview, she goes, yeah, like she agrees with you, right? And I'm sitting there watching this interview and I'm thinking to myself, why isn't she backing this up with another question? Because if I were there and I have followed this as closely as I have through the years, I have further questions to ask. Because every statement that he makes, she backs up and she says, oh, right, exactly, okay? And they both of them act like they're victims in this whole situation, okay? She talks about how she's had to make apology videos. She totally co-signs him. She actually gives him an excuse, okay? Which he then uses in the interview. She explains this anchoring bias, okay? She defines what anchoring bias is, which I'm going to get to just a second in my interview, or I'm going to get to just a second when talking about the interview. She talks about anchoring bias, and she gives James the excuse of anchoring bias as to why people in 2024 are still talking about what happened 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, okay? She gives him an excuse, and then he uses that excuse. He goes, you're right about the anchoring bias. That's exactly what happened. And let me just tell you, from this interview going forward, he's going to use words aligned with anchoring bias to explain this in further situations, okay? James Charles will not, don't tell me that hard-hitting people haven't come, you know, and asked James Charles for an interview. He refuses to sit down with them. That's what's going on. You know, I covered Trisha Paytas in my video yesterday, and I got done with that video, and there was something that she said in the video, and I was like, it was a dig to James and Colleen, and I couldn't remember what it was, because at the time that I was watching it, I didn't take my notes. And what Trisha says in there, I just remember while I was watching this interview, is she references something about, like, it's while she's talking about with Oscar about calling up TV shows and asking them if they'll, like, do interviews, or asking people to write articles for you and things like that. And she kind of makes some joke, and she's like, no, that's pathetic. I'm not going to call up people and ask them to do interviews on me like other people do. And I was like, that is such a direct dig at Colleen Ballinger for having the Vanity Fair article written about her, and James Charles having the Cosmopolitan article. And we know now, okay, that they reached out to those people to have those interviews written. Neither one of them has ever come out and denied that and said that that's not true, that they didn't reach out to these people, that they got to approve the final edit, okay? So, first of all, the one question that you ask him, the one valid question that you ask him, comes from a highly edited video, or highly edited interview that he did in Cosmopolitan. The worst interview in the entire world, other than yours, sweetheart, okay, is this Cosmopolitan article. And your source material is an article that James Charles did and requested having done, okay, probably paid to have done, that's called Please Uncancel Me. That's your source material, but you have the nerve to get and the audacity to get in a video and tell people out there that are calling James Charles out that they need to go to the source. And you, both of you in there, bash drama channels. I'm so tired of the bashing of drama channels. For years, drama channels have gone to the source material, okay? For years. And our source material has been James Charles. Period. End of story. If James Charles doesn't like what we've talked about in drama videos, then James Charles should have been fucking doing what he was doing to begin with. Other than the Cosmopolitan article, which was an interview of James Charles, in videos, I have never referenced and said, well, this person said that, and this person said that, and blah, blah, blah. Two things that James Charles has done since this whole thing went down is he's tried to change the narrative, and he's tried to blame people for false allegations. And the third thing he's done that he's doing again today is victim blaming, okay? So I want to get into this interview because I have a lot of notes about this. So let's get into this. You can tell I'm kind of heated about this, right? So she goes in and she asks him this question, right? And so this is basically what he says. He says he's lived his whole life online, but that he goes in and he says he wanted to apologize for what he did. And what he did, okay? Well, what he did was that he was having sexually inappropriate conversations with at least two minors, okay? One who was 14 and one that was 16. Now, when James Charles comes out with the argument that he didn't know that they were 18, okay, that he would do an age check, I have seen pictures of these young men, okay? They don't anywhere near look 18, okay? And he was 21 at the time, all right? So let's just get that clear, all right? They don't anywhere near, I mean, what 14-year-old do you know, okay? Unless they, like, had a growth spurt at 12 and are 6 foot tall and have a full beard, which is not what James Charles is into anyway. Let's just make that clear, okay? I'm going to say this later in the discussion, but James Charles came out in the Logan Paul interview and said that he wanted to date somebody that looked as close to 18 as possible, okay? So he's not looking for the 16-year-old that looks 30, okay? I'm not saying that I've never seen teenagers that look a lot older than they are, but when you look at pictures of these two men, these two young boys that he was talking to, I guess they're now men, these two young boys that he was talking, well, one of them would only be 18 at this point. So these two young boys that he was talking to, they don't anywhere near look close to the age of 18. There's not even a reason why you would need to do an age check, okay? They ain't buying cigarettes in no state. Let's just put it that way, all right? And the fact that he had to age check them then, okay, and today in 2024, at 25 years old, he's still age checking people. But in his Holding Myself Accountable video, he said, I've always wanted to date somebody my age or older. James, you're 25 years old, okay? Your age or older is 25 to 30, okay? It's not somebody that looks 18. So why are you doing age checks? Very rarely do I run across a 25-year-old that looks even remotely 18 years old, or that would be questionable, okay? Let's just be for real on this. I mean, this is all coming from the source material, James, you, okay? And this interview did you no favors, period, end of story. So he goes in to talk about, here's his excuse of his narrative. I've always lived my life online, and people don't understand how hard it is, and I've always had to explain everything and share everything online. This is always his excuse, right? Well, I'm sitting there watching, I'm like, I can think of a lot of YouTubers that live their life online. A lot of YouTubers. I mean, I could probably, right now, sit here and list 60 of them that have never had scandals where they're talking inappropriately sexually to minors. So why is it just you and a few other people? No, it's not about the fact that you lived your life online, okay? And that people don't know the difference and you don't know the difference between James Charles and James Dickinson, who you really are, okay? But let's also talk about how you had multiple YouTube channels before your makeup channel blew up. So at a very young age, all right, that you were wanting to get fame and attention. Not to mention that this has also come out, and you've talked about it in videos too, James, okay? About you trying to, when you were in high school, trying to catfish people, okay? So this has been an long behavior for a very long period of time, okay? This isn't something that just happened overnight and was an accident, like you were talking to a bunch of 20-year-olds, okay, in DMs, and all of a sudden a 14-year-old, okay? Some 14-year-olds aren't even freshmen in high school. We're talking 8th grade and junior high. Can we put this in perspective for a second? A 21-year-old is sexually inappropriately talking to an 8th grader, okay? Let's just put this in perspective for a second. A 21-year-old grown man, I don't give a fuck how developmental he is or not, okay? That is the excuse that people use. The fact that you would even use that excuse if it happened to your own kid or your brother, if your 8th grade brother, okay, was talking to a 21-year-old grown man, you would give a rat's ass about their emotional development, okay? You could care less. It's the excuse that people go to for Colleen Ballinger, and it's the excuse that people go to for James Charles to give him an out, okay? It's ridiculous. If a 21-year-old grown man in your town that could go out to bars, okay, and meet anybody that he wanted to meet and see them face to face and know they're in a bar, okay, if he knew that, all right, why is he online talking to people in their DMs? Also, the story has shifted from time to time if you watch closely like I have. You know, at certain times he says they reached out to him. At other times he says he reached out to them. I mean, it's always been interesting to me that he talks about your search and For You page are not dating apps, okay? Well, that's interesting to me because then that means that you're looking for people on your search or For You. You're finding them that way, and then you're dipping into their DMs. You said that, James. That comes from your source material, okay? That wouldn't imply that they come to you first, right? In fact, I think a lot of his age checking that he's showing now is to try to cover up the story of what he told in the past, which was that they were dipping into his DMs first. Yes, I do believe that that's happened from time to time, that people dip into James Charles, okay? I will just tell you this right now, just to put this in perspective. What is so bizarre to me about this is that I am not anywhere I hate the word influencer, okay? I just think it's a phony ass word. But let's just put us both in the same category, okay? I am nowhere in the same category of an influencer that James Charles is, okay? At all. All right? And I get a lot of DMs from people. I get a lot of DMs that I can't even get to, okay? How is James Charles on his level, okay, of 16 million subscribers, how is he finding the DMs to go through, mixed in between, I love this look, this picture's so good, you look great here. How is he finding the DMs? How much time is he spending online? How is he finding the DMs that say, like, hey, I think you're hot, or whatever, right? And yet he says he's changed. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get into his original paragraph of what he talks about here. That he wanted to apologize for what he did. And then he says that, which was what he did was, and let's just make this clear, okay? What we know that he did was that he was 21 and he had 2 conversations. Oh, this is what he says. He had 2 conversations with 2 different people that were an hour long, and that they were lying about their age. So I blocked them, and that was it. Now, this is not the exact same story that he has told other places, okay? This story has changed over time, all right? And I'm a believer that stories are not always exact, right? But I do believe that when something this profound or pivotal happens in your life, there are certain things that you will always remember, okay? there were certain incidents of things that you will always remember. My sobriety is very, very important to me. There are certain things that are surrounding my sobriety that I would remember specifically, okay? Who was there? I'm talking about after I got sober. Who was there? Who was I talking to? Things like that. You're talking about the thing that you cannot shut up about even 4 or 5 years later, okay? That ultimately changed your entire career. The fact that you even have one today is mesmerizing to me, okay? And yet you constantly are changing your story of how long you talk to them, how, whatever. Then he goes and he's victim blaming these people, right? Again, saying that they lied to him. And he refers to one person. He goes, well, one person did come out and they lied, okay? And they apologized for lying. They said they wish they had never done it. Okay. Number one, we're victim blaming, okay? And she agrees with him on this. She's like, oh yeah. She agrees with him, okay? So now you have two people, two fucking grown adults that are victim blaming somebody that was between the age of 14 and 16, okay? An 8th grader to a sophomore in high school. We're victim blaming that person that they should know better, okay? Than having and this is where he comes out and he talks about the power of control and having power. He doesn't talk about it a lot in this video. He doesn't talk about it a lot in this interview. No, he blames the victims again. And he goes, well, one person did come out and say that they were sorry for lying, okay? So this excuse that we have used for James Charles, well, I've never used it, but other people have, that he wasn't emotionally developed enough because he wasn't 25, which he fucking is now, so that's no excuse, okay? That he was not emotionally developed enough now, that he didn't know what he was doing. So that's a good enough excuse for James Charles, who at the time was 21, okay? But it's okay to blame somebody that was 14 years old that later came out and apologized for it. A 14-year-old, okay? Like, the power differential and the age differential there is so baffling to me that anybody is okay with a then 14-year-old being victim blamed, okay? And why would they want to come out and talk about this and clear their name when they're 18 years old? Who would? Who would? Nobody's gonna believe him anyway. James Charles has the power. Every time I make a video, people say things just like the other day. This is too much. Why are you talking about it? James Charles isn't as bad as this person. James Charles isn't as bad as this person. This is what I said in my video the other day covering it, right? You don't get to decide the trauma and the seriousness of what somebody else went through. You do not get to decide how serious somebody else's victimization is, all right? I don't care who that person is. You don't get to decide how that has affected their life. These two young men are going to have to live with this for the rest of their life. This will affect their family relationships, their romantic relationships, how they identify themselves. This will affect their interactions with people. This will affect their trust issues with people. This will affect people calling them a liar or believing that they're telling the truth, okay? On a very small level that they have to go out and live the rest of their lives. While James Charles is having a launch of a makeup brand, James Charles is coming out and he's going to the People's Choice Awards. James Charles is living in a $10 million home in Los Angeles, and James Charles is being interviewed by this person. Did you, Sophia, reach out to the two victims? I'm just asking, okay? Did you reach out to the two victims? Did you reach out to the multiple other people that have come forward that haven't been called liars, that have accused James Charles of the same thing? Minors and straight men that he was trying to be coercive with, to manipulate them into thinking that they were bi-curious, to have sexual conversations. Did you interview any of those people, Sophia? So when you talk about anchoring bias, who's got it? You do, okay? You have the bias. And you went into an interview, okay, getting for views the fact that you were going to talk about James Charles and his accountability when he did a video called Holding Myself Accountable that you don't even reference in the interview. He does. You don't even reference him taking the video down. He does, okay? Which now I understand why James Charles took the Holding Myself Accountability video down. But we'll get to that in just a second, okay? You don't ask him any of the hard-hitting questions. In fact, the only research that you did was what you knew and lightly reading the Cosmopolitan article, okay? You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself for platforming a predator, number one. And number two, if you are going to platform a predator, you better ask him the real questions. And number three, if you are going to ask him, you better reach out to the victims and ask them how they were affected by this, okay? Instead of swooning all over him about his fucking makeup room, as if anybody would give a shit, alright? It's disgusting. This whole thing is so disgusting, I couldn't even believe it when I was watching it. Goes on to say that this one person did lie, and he wished that he didn't do it in the first place, which totally takes any, responsibility off of James Charles. Then he goes on to say that the craziest content is what's going to go viral. And what he's referencing is the allegations in his Holding Myself Accountable video, okay? And he says that it's crazy content, okay? Well, let's call it what it is, okay? You being alleged of being a predator towards minors, okay? That's not crazy content, okay? Mr. Beast eating the world's most expensive bagel for $25,000. That might be crazy content, okay? You being a predator and having sexual conversations with minors, okay? And grooming straight men into thinking that they were bi-curious, that is not crazy content, okay? That is sick and twisted is what it is. So let's just put that out there, all right? People for years have said things like, well, James Charles isn't a groomer, and blah, blah, blah. There's no evidence of that. The fuck there's not. Have you not seen these conversations that he's had with straight men? Are you sure you've never been with a guy before? Are you sure this? Are you sure? That's grooming, okay? Adults can be fucking groomed. Do you not know that? Go look it up. Go look the definitions up, okay? I'm not educating people on this anymore. You guys want to make excuses for James Charles, you are. But I'll tell you what, right now, 99% of the people that watch my videos, they know the truth and they believe the truth. And thank God for you over here, okay? I mean, that's why I'm not putting you through these definitions again. Go look it up for those of you out there that want to defend James Charles, okay? Go look up what grooming is. He was grooming straight men into believing that they were bi-curious. That's so sick. And goes all the way back. This is where, when people say to me, like, why do you take such an issue with people like Gigi Gorgeous hanging out with him at the People's Choice Awards, or Manny MUA, or Daniel Prada, okay? You know, Daniel Prada and Manny MUA have the life that they have as open gay men today because of the life that I lived before them, because of the people that lived before me, because of the people that came before them in Stonewall, okay? And the AIDS crisis, and the criticism that we took. And when I was just sharing in my video that I did the other day about Herb Baumeister, the gay serial killer in Indiana, okay, that when I came out at 18 years old in 1990, we couldn't even walk down the street holding hands, okay, out of fear of being bashed. You people out there, okay, the younger generation, you have, because of what we walked through. I had what because of what people walked through before me. And the people before me had what because of what they had before them. Do your history, okay? Of how the certain tattoos came up and people would have to hide them at work with their watches. And that tattoo would let other people know that when they were out, okay, that they were gay, and they would take their watch off. They had to hide in the shadows, all right? For years, one of the huge stereotypes that we have had to fight in the LGBTQIA plus community, okay, is that we recruit people. And yet you have James Charles, all right, coercing straight men into possibly thinking that they might be bi-curious, which is grooming, okay? You have a gay man grooming straight men. The exact stereotype that people have thrown at us for years, that we have fought and said, we're not recruiting anybody, what the fuck? Why would you want to have to live this life if you didn't choose to, right? And take out all the other allegations. Those things have been proven, okay? Take it all. It's all been proven, first of all, okay? It's been proven by James Charles because he's come out and addressed it and talked about it. But then you have all these open gay men out there thriving in their careers, okay? That support somebody that goes into that narrative, okay? And that stereotype. So when Manny MUA says to me on the phone, when I ask him the question, okay, not like Sophia would do or any of these other people, and I said something about how do you stand behind James Charles? If you knew the real James Charles, let's make this clear, Manny, okay? With all the privilege that you have as a gay man in Hollywood and all the opportunities that you've been offered, all right? You are not, and I'm not saying that I did it alone, okay? There were a million gay men of my generation and a million gay men and lesbians of the generation before me and a million gay men and lesbians of the generation before that came before me to give me the life that I have today. But be respectful of your history and the people that came before you, and quit fighting against the change that we have given to you guys and the change that they gave me. Let's be respectful of the people that came before us who lost their lives, okay, for fighting this stigma. And instead of you telling me on the phone, if you knew James behind the scenes, what James do I need to know behind the scenes? I don't fucking need to know James Charles behind the scenes. Because he's shown me his true colors from his own mouth, from things he's put out there, okay? And anybody that's working against the LGBTQIA plus community, that's part of it, is nobody that I want to be friends with or align myself with. It's disgusting. This is going to stop. Hold on a second. So let's get back into this interview. Okay. So he goes on here and says, the craziest content is what's going to go viral, okay? He says in there that he apologized for what he did. Now, this is very important. What he did was not checking IDs and taking the proper precautions. And I'm like, oh, so that's what he thinks he apologized for. When he calls them the victims and is holding myself accountable video, they're victims of him not checking IDs and taking proper precautions. That's an interesting word to use. I don't know if, like, if I, like, cashed somebody's check that they wrote me and I didn't check to see if it was a appropriate check, I don't know that I would call my bank the victim. I don't know if I would apologize to my victim, the bank. Okay? That, to me, is a weird word to use when you're coming out and you're apologizing. So now what he's saying is he never apologized for his behavior. He apologized for the fact that he didn't check their IDs. That was the only thing that he did wrong, okay? Was that he didn't check for IDs. Okay, so now that we got that clear, all right? He says it got so twisted into crazy words, into things that literally did not happen, okay? That it did not happen, that he came out and he said this, and he said that. Well, the problem is, James, is that you've said so many different things, okay? You said in my Holding Myself Accountable video, I've always wanted to date somebody that was my age or older. It's never been my intention to date somebody young. But then, as a 21-year-old man, in the Logan Paul interview, you, out of your own mouth, said that you wanted to date somebody that looked as close to 18 as possible. Looked as close to 18. That could be somebody that was under 18. We don't know. That's from your mouth, James. Because your story constantly changes, see? And you got a lot of yes people around you, like this piss-poor interviewer, Sophia, okay? Ridiculous. You know, it's like people, I think, anyway, let me get back into this before this video is 2 hours long. He says, and since he apologized, it turned into James Charles apologized for this and James Charles apologized for that. James, you were the one that used the word victims, okay, in your video. And then you took your video down and you came out with the open conversation video, which is a get ready with me, where you address it and you blame everything on Deaf Noodles, okay? Because at that time, Deaf Noodles was posting every allegation that was coming out there, okay? This is the thing, and I just want to say this, okay, in retrospect about this, because I've said a lot about the fact that that was why I believed at the time, and I didn't really report on this a lot at the time. If you go back and look on my channel, I was not one of the people that was reporting on this, okay? This is in the last year that I've talked a lot about James Charles. But one of the things that is interesting to me is that a lot of people that were throwing up the false allegations, we didn't know at the time if they were true or not, okay? We didn't know what was true. But you have to remember that those allegations and those people trying to fake what happened came out after James Charles Holding Myself Accountable video, okay? They came out after the No More Lies video. They came out after James Charles had addressed the situation and said that he had had sexually inappropriate conversations with minors, okay? James, if you hadn't done that, that wouldn't have opened the door to people faking things for you, okay? And us taking that for fact and that there could have been some believability to it. The fact of the matter is, you took responsibility, okay, for having sexually inappropriate conversations with minors. I'm not really sure why it is our responsibility and the public's responsibility to decipher which allegations are true or which aren't, okay? You've already set the precedent that you're a predator, all right? We already know that. I don't really give a rat's ass what your excuses are. You also came out and said with a quick search, you could have found their social medias and what their ages were. You said that. With a quick search, you could have found out what their ages are. You've said that, okay? So, a quick search. I've had hour conversations. I talked to my good Judy Tanya Jean on the phone for an hour every single night. That's a long fucking time to talk to somebody on the phone. So you're talking to me the whole time that you're talking to somebody for an hour on the phone. You've never once gone and looked at their search, their profile page. You said with an easy search, okay? So while you're talking to them in that hour, you're not going and looking at their main page and what they've posted and other TikToks or other Instagram. You're not looking at their other pictures. Bullshit. Anybody out there knows that, okay? So you kept talking to them until you thought you were going to get caught. That's what you did, okay? So there were a lot of false allegations that came out. Now, I don't agree with platforming those false allegations, but the problem is, okay, and you have always pandered to the idea that the false allegations are what we should focus on because they take away the relevancy of the true allegations. And I don't care if there's 100 victims or if there's 2, okay? But there's a lot more than 2, James Charles, and we know that, all right? But here's the problem with that, okay, is that you have fallen back on these false allegations that Deaf Noodles was leading the charge at that time. But the reality is, and all of us know this, is we didn't know which allegations were true or false at that time. You had already come out and proclaimed that you were a predator for 2 people. So what were we to believe? That all the rest of them were fake? We didn't know what to believe, okay? And I can tell you, since you want to throw drama channels under the bus so quickly, at that time, one of the reasons why I chose not to speak about it is A, because it was so fucking dark, but today I think it does need to be talked about, okay? And you can thank your good Judy Colleen Ballinger, because if it wasn't for Colleen Ballinger and all her shenanigans from the last year, I probably wouldn't be talking about you, okay? But two, one of the conversations that was occurring with drama channels behind the scenes at that time was, how do we talk about this, because we do not know what allegations are true, okay? Which was one of the reasons why I didn't cover it. So many people. But James, let's not forget this one thing, okay? If all these allegations were false, I mean, there's been 20, 30, 40 allegations at this point. Why did you just choose one of them to reach out to every drama channel besides myself and Here for the Tea and send all that information? James Charles, you sent that information to drama channels. When I reached out to you and said to you, I don't understand why you're saying this to drama channels, you thought you had included me in it, okay? What you didn't know was that we were blocked from that group, okay? Sam and I were blocked from that group. That was why you couldn't include our names in it, okay? Sam and I talked about that back in the day. That was why we didn't get that information. But you sent it out to every other drama channel. You wanted them to tell that story, okay? So you were behind the scenes creating narratives, much like Colleen Ballinger was behind the scenes talking to people to come for Adam McIntyre. You were trying to create a narrative behind the scenes with drama channels, the same drama channels that you're now coming for and saying that we threw you under the bus, right? Oh, no. Let's not get it twisted, James Charles. You tried to manipulate us, okay? You're one example of somebody that's tried to manipulate us for a very long time, okay? I've got several stories of how you tried to manipulate me personally, all right? So let's not fucking go there, because if you want to go there, we'll go there, all right? But that's just one incident, and I wasn't involved in that. But why do you think all those videos came out after that about James Charles and his side of the story, all right? That's what happened, James Charles. And then you know what? Those people reached out to the victim. They started getting the real story, okay? He came out with his side of the story, all right? So let's not get it twisted when you want to throw drama channels under the bus and say that we were getting things wrong. Our source has always and will always be you. From your own mouth, from your interviews, from things that you have said online, from tweets that you have put out, from Instagram pictures of birthday cakes that you have put out, and you trying to manipulate the scene with drama channels behind the scenes. Prove me wrong. Do you want me to call up all my drama channel friends and ask them if they got sent all the text messages from you and those people? That's already come out in videos. People already know that. Yes, James Charles, you tried to manipulate drama channels. If there was no, why would you need to do that to get your story out there? But hold on a second, that was only one allegation, okay? Why didn't you send us receipts on all the other allegations? Just that one allegation that you could prove was fake, right? But the 20 to 60 other ones, you couldn't. And definitely not with the two victims. You never sent us any receipts about the two victims that you referred to them as. Victims of the fact that you didn't check their social media profiles. That's a weird word to use. Basically, you would just say, hey, I'm sorry I didn't check your social media profiles. I don't know why you would refer to those people as victims, okay? It's a weird vibe. So then she goes in and she says, no apology. She's like, I've had to make my own apology videos. Really, girl? Don't know who you are. Don't care. She says she's been in trouble with other problematic people that she's done interviews with. She says no apology video will ever be good enough. Okay? She says you will never be remorseful enough, and that you can never be sorry enough. Girl, sorry. Okay, to ruin your dream of being the world's best interviewer. But that's not the issue that people have with James Charles in his apology video, okay? Just so you know. I have never, in fact, ever heard or watched one drama video. Girl, where's your source fucking material, okay? Where are you sourcing your material from? Because I can tell you, I can give you 30 sources of my material, okay? Where's your source material coming from that anybody has ever said that James Charles wasn't remorseful enough in that video? I've never said that. I don't think anybody else has ever said that. That's not what we take issue with the apology video, girl. What we take issue with is the fact that he came out and called a 14 and a 16-year-old victims. That's not problematic to you? Oh, wait. Oh, we should be focused on the fact that he wasn't remorseful. Actually, I think he did a fantastic acting job in that video. He acted very remorseful in that video. Very remorseful that he had just fucked his career is what he did, right? Very remorseful. But nobody in 4 to 5 years of that video being out has ever criticized James Charles. You're ridiculous, girl. You are absolutely ridiculous. The fact that anybody takes you seriously as an interviewer is beyond me. I mean, do you hang out with Gabrielle Bluestone and Andrew Quintana investigative journalist? Is that who you think you are because you have a couch and a podcast? My tripod just slid down just as I was getting into the good of it. You know, you think you're somebody special just because you have a podcast and a couch? Girl, get over yourself, okay? Talking about giving all these examples and all this kind of stuff, and nobody's ever cared, okay, about the authenticity of the apology video, how remorseful he was, all that. Nobody's ever said that in a video. We've always focused on the fact that he said he was desperate, and that he said that he wasn't going to focus on his social media profiles, his dating apps anymore, and that he apologized to the victims. That he is now coming out and saying that the victims are the victims of him not looking at their social media profiles, which I went back and watched my Holding Myself Accountable video today for the 9 millionth time, and he does say that. So we're going to get to that in just a second, okay? But, girl, you are a joke of an interviewer. You don't even know what you're talking about. He then says that when you apologize, you need to show over time that you're remorseful. You need to show an apology rather than say an apology. He later goes in there and he says the same thing, right? He says that all this kind of stuff about how you need to show an apology over time, that you've changed over time, that you take things seriously over time, that you really mean it, right? Are you talking about the birthday cake that is on you and Daniel Prada and other people's social media accounts? The birthday cake that your friend got you that said, and you did it at my birthday party? A quote from Toddy Westbrook calling you out about very similar behavior? Are you talking about that? Does that show change? Did it show change a month ago? A month ago. Okay, I have the receipt in my phone. From when you were on Instagram, age checking people? Or how about when you were reaching out to people in Los Angeles, asking them to contact you in DMs? Or how about when you were reaching out to people saying you believed your soulmate was out there, they just need to DM you? All talking about how your social media apps are not dating apps, but you're actually asking people to contact you that could be your profile or your soulmate. You're asking that. That's coming from you, James. I did my research. This interviewer didn't, okay? But I did my research. So that's all coming from you. That shows that you haven't changed, okay, actually. So when you keep on saying over and over and over again, people will show you over time I've changed, and you say I've changed, right? That shows that you haven't changed, James, okay? You came out in the Cosmopolitan article and said you're still acting like the doorman to people in DMs. But in your Holding Myself Accountable video, which you took down, you said that you weren't going to use social media apps anymore as dating profiles. And why are you needing to age check anybody? And even furthermore, what's interesting to me is that you always say that it's so difficult to be 25 years old as a gay man in the industry and date other people, but I know a lot of people that are your age that are dating people, and they aren't dating 14-year-old boys that they're finding on Instagram that live in the middle of nowhere, girl, okay? No, that's your choice, okay? That's your demographic of what you're interested in, okay? And wanting to fly those people out and put applications out. Just since, this has all come out. Remember, you said, you put an application out, my boyfriend, you put this to somebody, right? So when you want to come out and say that your dating life has been made very public, it's not really your dating life that's been made public, okay? It's your inappropriate conversations with minors and your coercive behavior with straight men. That's what people take issue with that's gone public. From you, James. From you, okay? He then goes and she says actions speak louder than words. Well, I just proved you that his actions don't speak shit. They haven't proved anything over time, okay? Then she goes in and she defines this anchoring bias. And an anchoring bias is that the first thing that you hear is the truth, okay? So let's go back. The allegations come out, right? And then James Charles comes out 6 months later with a video after all the allegations are talked about, right? The allegations that he had sexually inappropriate conversations with minors, all right? Then he comes back after a long period of time, I don't know how many months it was, and makes the Holding Myself Accountable video, and he apologizes to his minors that he had sexual conversations with, 14 and 16-year-old. What's the anchoring bias that we're supposed to hold on to there, Sophia? The anchoring bias would be the initial allegations that he had then backed up by apologizing, right? He apologized to his victims of not checking social media apps. That's what they're victims of. This is fucking ridiculous to me, okay? That we are even entertaining this and that nobody wants to put in. People for years are like, why are the police not involved? Why are the police not involved? Nobody pressed charges, first of all. Okay, that's really important. Nobody went to the police. For anything to even get started, the victims would have to go to the police. That never happened, okay? That's why James Charles is sitting there. But the real question to me is, other than that, is why is nobody willing to actually do a real interview with James Charles? Or is it that James Charles isn't really willing to sit down with anybody that would actually do a real interview with him? Because he keeps on sitting down with these people that gloss over and paint narratives that never happened and are not true, okay? Then he goes in and says, when drama videos began making videos about him in 2019, his dating life began being very public, whether that was on dating apps. Unfortunately, my dating life became public and stories were posted. In 2019, James, well, I've been around since 2016. 2019, actually, after that, was when you reached out to the drama channels. So you now want to throw the drama channels under the bus because we caught on very quickly to the fact that you were sending us information behind the scenes and trying to manipulate the narrative. Is that what you're upset with us about, James Charles? Well, James Charles, I just want you to know right now that there's been a few of us behind the scenes, a few of us OG drama channels. We've actually been working for quite some time now, okay, on a connection with you and certain drama channels that exist today. Okay, and that you've been very coercive behind the scenes with a lot of people. You've used Manny to get to drama channels. You've used other people to get to drama channels. And, girl, it all kind of goes back to you a little bit. Oh, but wait, okay? That's a deep dive investigation that is between me and a couple other people. That will be coming out soon, okay? And that will be some information that will blow your fucking socks off because, number one, it will be ruining the reputations of several large drama channels out there, okay, with very connected receipts that show in evidence, okay, how this goes back many, many years. And number two, it will show that there is no validity to this narrative that you give that you did nothing fucking wrong, okay? Because if you did nothing wrong, you wouldn't need to basically get a whole harem of drama channels, okay? That it didn't work with the OG one, so I better approach the up-and-coming ones and manipulate them and use them over time. And it worked, didn't it? You helped build their channel, and they helped defend you over time. And it worked, didn't it, James, okay? But we're about to blow that out of the water, all right? People think us OG drama channels are stupid. No, you wanted to fucking use us and it didn't work for you, did it? It didn't work at all. That's why today you throw us under the bus. But listen, I'm not going to forget, okay? And I have those receipts of where you sent that to other drama channels. Because those drama channels sent me those receipts, okay? Of where you sent them very edited versions of the DMs between you and other people, okay? You reached out to drama channels, James Charles. We weren't even reaching out to you at all for no statements. Those days had long passed. That was after 2019. So when you say that when drama videos began being made about you, well, you reached out to us after that. So did you have an issue with that? Girl, I thought you had issues with some of my titles. I didn't know that you had issues with me making drama channel videos about something that you apologized to in a video. Am I not allowed to do that? Can you let me know the rules like you did that small group that you helped build their channels, girl? Can you let me know those rules? Yeah, okay. This Sophia, she goes in here and she agrees and co-signs literally everything that he says, okay? I'm so excited about his makeup room. Here's some bias for you, girl. How about somebody interview James Charles that doesn't care about his fucking makeup room or his $10 million house? I don't give a rat's ass. I'll sit down and interview him, okay? But if I'm going to interview him, I'm going to bring a few of my drama channel video friends along with me, okay? Because we got some people to throw under the bus. We do, girl, okay? Those people that buy in subs and views and all that kind of stuff. You know who you are out there, okay? You know who you are that's been doing sketchy ass shit for a long time, and you've been watching us for years behind the scenes, okay? For years. Well, what you didn't know, girl, is that we've been researching y'all, okay? There's 3 or 4 of you out there. We've been researching you guys. Well, maybe 5 or 6 of you. We've been researching you for the last year, okay? And we have a lot on you guys, okay? And it does not look pretty. I'm just saying. And a lot of it ties back to James Charles. So when that comes out, this picture that James Charles wants to paint about how he is, you know, drama channels came out and talked about all this kind of stuff. Why don't you call us out? Why don't you say the drama channels that talked about you back in the day? Okay? How about you try to talk about how you tried to manipulate us behind the scenes? Why don't you talk about... I'll tell you what you should do, James, is you should get in your next interview and you should say, these are the 5 to 6 drama channels that are bought today, okay, when we want to talk about fucking payroll, and these are the 5 or 6 drama channels that were not bought, because I could not buy them, okay? And those people over here, those of us that were accused of payroll over there back in the day, and the people that almost lost their careers, like Dustin Daly and Nick Snyder and all of them back in the day for payroll that got accused of payroll over there, remember those people over here, okay? That couldn't be bought by you, James Charles? No, you bought these people instead, didn't you? And we know who they are, and we've got receipts to back it up. So just get ready, because that video expose is coming out one of these days. So anyway, she goes back in here and she gives him the excuse of anchoring bias. In fact, she even says at the very end of that part of the interview, she says, you need to read something from the actual source, not take an unbiased point of view. And she says, it's something to be aware of. She goes back to the anchoring bias. So she's given an explanation of it. She's given it as in a defense of James Charles, and she goes, it's something to be aware of. Be aware of what, girl? That the first thing that we heard was that he allegedly was having inappropriate conversations with minors, and then James Charles came out and validated that he was having inappropriate conversations with minors? Is that the anchoring bias that we're going with? That's the first story we heard? Yeah, girl, that's the first story that we heard, and James Charles came out and validated that. That's why I call him a self-proclaimed predator. Am I wrong? He did do that, girl. Okay, no, what James Charles is he's splitting hairs, okay? So he's splitting hairs. He goes in and says, information is so easily accessible, but also easily misconstrued. It's so important to look for a real source on what's being discussed, is what's being said. Okay, well, my real source is you, James. So I go back in and I watch this holding myself accountable video, right? He says in there, it's always been his hope to be in a relationship with someone his age or older. Yet, in the Logan Paul video, you said that you want to date somebody that looked as close to 18 as possible. So what is it, James? Did you change your mind because it fit the narrative? Because those two boys were under the age of 18, and so you had to change that narrative? But then you've come out and said other things since then? Okay. Then you go in and you say, what happened was not okay. I didn't do the proper research, and for that, I am ashamed and embarrassed. Now, I have to tell you, this interview, the one thing that it does do is, since she wants to talk about source material, it serves as source material as kind of like an instruction manual for how to read the video holding myself accountable in a way that maybe you never looked at it before, okay? So, because he says in there, I didn't apologize for what people think I apologize for, okay? People took that story and ran with it, like JoJo Siwa. See, this is why it's important that we hold these people accountable, like JoJo Siwa and other people that defend these predators, okay? People say for years, why is it important? James Charles is now using the JoJo Siwa defense that she said in the Howie Mandel interview, that you can take a lie and run with it, okay? That's how she discredited the victims. James Charles is now saying, people took what I said in that video and they ran with it, okay? He's using the JoJo Siwa defense against Colleen Ballinger. Now, y'all want to come for me and say that who these people surround themselves or not with important? The interviewer is giving him an out. JoJo Siwa is giving Colleen Ballinger an out. All these people build him credibility. Why would she have him on his couch and interview him if there wasn't any validity to any of this kind of stuff, right? She's giving him excuses. She's like, oh my God, like I feel so bad for you and everything that you went through and all this kind of stuff, right? So he goes in and he says, what happened was not okay. I didn't do the proper research, and for that I am ashamed and embarrassed. He says that the only way that you can show that you're sorry is through action and change, which I proved and can prove with 10 more pieces of evidence that he hasn't actually changed through the years. He says in there, my For You page is not a dating app, and I will stop acting as if they are. So on that piece alone, okay, which was the platform that he was using to have inappropriate conversations with minors, we know in 2024 that that is not stopped, because he is asking people for age checks, and he even said in this interview himself, he still has to do age checks. Age checks with who, people? Who, James? I thought you said years ago in your Holding Myself Accountable video that your social media profiles are not dating apps. So if you're a changed person, which you said through your own action that you would show that you've changed, that you said in that video that that was not going to happen anymore. Yet it's never stopped, has it? Okay? Then he goes in and he apologizes to the victims. Now, watching this 9 million times, like I said, and then hearing this interview of what he says about people took what I said and they twisted it. I watched very closely for what he said. Now, I've heard this a million times. I've heard him say it a million times. I know what he says in the video, okay? He apologizes to the victims for not doing appropriate background checks. And then goes right in and apologizes to his family. The implications of this are really so sick, okay? So what that says is that James Charles never really apologized to the victims at all, okay? What he apologized to them for was not doing appropriate checks of their social media platforms, which I knew. The twisted part of it is that he used the word victims, okay? I do not believe in retrospect that he took the holding myself accountable video down because he thought that it would implicate him in federal crimes, which is what a lot of people believe. I even thought that for a while. I believe that he took it down now because he used the word victims, okay? And he knew that people were going to question victims for what. That's why he took it out. When he came back with the open conversation videos, he doesn't use that word. I don't believe that he does. So, for me, that's why I took the video down. But when you go back and you watch the Holding Myself Accountable video, it's very clear. He is apologizing to the victims. And the victims are victims of his not checking their social media platforms, okay? He's taking no responsibility whatsoever. This is a man that says that he has learned and he has changed and he has grown. So let me pose this one question to you, okay? If in your neighborhood or in your community, a 21-year-old man were having sexually inappropriate conversations with a 14-year-old, would you really care if they did an age check on that person or not? Or would you just assume, okay? I mean, have you seen 14-year-olds before? Let's be for real, okay? Would you really care about the background story? Do you really think that holds up whatsoever? Okay? And then to later have that person come out and validate for us, I never apologized for the conversations. He's not apologizing for the conversations. He's not apologizing for even having sexually inappropriate conversations for minors. The only thing he's apologizing for is not age checking. And in this interview, again, he blames a 14-year-old boy. Okay? So you have somebody out there that is 21 years old having sexually inappropriate conversations with a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old that doesn't think they did anything wrong other than not age checking them. So when he says that he's grown and shown change over time, what he's implying is, I now ask people for age checks. Because that's the only thing that James Charles needed to change. So when that takes me back to all the conversations I've had about this and all the people that I've talked to about this and things like that, all the people that defend James Charles, of course James Charles doesn't think he did anything wrong. The only thing he thinks he did wrong was not check somebody's social media. Oh, I didn't check their social media. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Can you send me some of your free PR makeup? Yeah, he never has, and this is what is so deep-seated about this, okay? This is what's so sick about this today, all right? This is where this interview did James Charles absolutely no favors whatsoever. Because for all these years, most people have thought that he was apologizing to the victims. I mean, people have shredded this apart and said what he said today before, but most people, the general public, believe that he was apologizing to the victims. The victims of him talking to them sexually inappropriate, and that was not appropriate, right? And they kind of went on that story. But what he's saying today is, I never thought there was anything wrong with that at all. And today I'm still talking to people on social media. I never thought there was anything wrong with having a sexual conversation with a 14-year-old. I just didn't know they were 14. That's the only thing that he thinks that he did wrong. And that's where people come in and they defend him and they go, it was this person's fault they lied to him. It was a 14-year-old's fault, okay, that he lied to get the attention from a celebrity that was 21 years old. And James Charles cannot even see what is wrong with the fact when he said himself that he could have, with a quick social media check, found out their real ages. He didn't want to do that because he wanted to keep on having those conversations. The implications of this interview are so profound because what they say is, all these years later in 2024, this is even worse than the Cosmopolitan article, okay? Because all these years later in 2024, James Charles has not changed because he didn't ever acknowledge to begin with what he needed to change, which is why he never went to therapy, because he never thought he needed to go to therapy for anything other than just checking people's social media. And that's pretty scary. And that's why I've said in video after video that this will happen again. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.